So there are two primary emotions that Moses is most recognized with in the Torah. Elijah eloquently spoke about one of them, Moshe's anger. The other one is most explicitly stated as well in this week's Parsha, anava, humility. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman that he had taken, that he had married. And they said, Miriam and Aaron, the two other primary leaders of the Israelite people during Moshe's time, has God spoken only through Moses? Has God not spoken through us as well? Vayishma Adonai, and God heard them. Moses never responds. Moses never responds to Miriam and Aaron. The Torah comes right in that moment and says, V'ha'ish Moshe anav me'od mikol ha'adam asher al panei ha'adama. Moses was himself very humble, more so than any other human on earth. And then the story picks up, and God goes on to punish Miriam for what it is she and Aaron brought to Moshe. Moses never responds. So what is it about Moses that makes him so humble? This is one of the moments in the Torah in which it tells us something as a matter of fact without giving us the key, the reason for why it is true. So we have to dig a little bit. Just before this episode in the Torah, Moses once again showed that he was a leader who didn't want to be a leader at all. From the very beginning, he was reluctant. At the burning bush, he said no. Throughout the journey in the desert, he says, no, not me. And after the complaining in Parshat Behalotecha, where we are this week, the really incessant complaining, Moses says, I cannot carry all this people by myself. It's too much for me. Kill me here and now, because I don't want to see this anymore. And so God responds back to Moses, pause, gather me 70 of Israel's elders, 70, and bring them to the tent of meeting and stand them there with you, and I will come down and I will speak to you, and I will draw upon the ruach that is in you, and I shall put it on them, and they will share the burden with you. You shall not bear it alone. God says, you can't carry this anymore? I have an idea. I'm going to bring 70 elders. I'm going to draw out of your soul some of the ruach, the spirit is in it, and I'm going to give them that special stuff that makes you, you. This is not Yitro, who came earlier in the Torah and said, this work is too hard for you. Let me set up a justice system in which there are more people to help you carry out the acts of justice. This is God saying, I'm going to pull the ruach out and lay it on to 70 elders. And that's precisely what happens. And right after that happens, Eldad and Medad, two of those elders, begin prophesying in the camp. They had the spirit. They took God's spirit, or they took Moshe's spirit. They were speaking ecstasy in the camp. And somebody, an assistant, runs out to Moses and he says, Moses, Eldad and Medad, they're acting like prophets in the camp. And then Joshua, Moses' attendant from his youth, spoke up and said, Moshe, Kilaim, stop them now from their prophecy. And Moses responds, Vayomer lo Moshe, Hamikanei atali, are you jealous on my behalf? Are you jealous for me? Umi ten kol am Adonai nevi'im, ki yiten Adonai et rucho alehem. Would it be so that all of God's people were prophets, that God would put God's divine spirit, God's ruach, on everybody? You want me to be jealous for something that, in fact, I think not only should these 70 elders have, but every single one of the Israelites and beyond deserve whatever it was that God gave me that has put me in the position of having to lead this Fakachta people. Joshua wants Moses to be jealous. You know, this happens a lot. We all have these people in our lives. Jealousy is a human emotion, right? Everybody feels it at some point or another. It's healthy. If you never feel jealous, you want to ask yourself why. Here's what's a little bit different. When you're not feeling jealous, but somebody else wants you to feel jealous, shouldn't you be with them? Shouldn't you be up there right now? Look at how much time they're spending together. I thought you spend that time with them. That's what Joshua was saying to Moshe. Do you really want them to have this relationship with God too? To which Moses says, I do. This doesn't make me jealous. Jealousy is important, but sometimes it is used as a weapon to split people apart or to split people, move people further from God. Chizkuni, the medieval commentator, says, Moses did not care if they would prophesy in the camp or only in the sacred precincts of the tabernacle. As long as they would make his life easier, he was happy for them to have what he had. Over and over and over again, over and over and over again in the Torah, when people ask for more power, Moses is silent. He does not respond to people challenging his authority. When Korach challenges Moses, Moses pauses and then says, let's let God figure this out. Moses does not rage back against Korach. They keep pressing him. Eventually he gets angry. Next week, in the story of the scouts, Shlach Lecha, the Israelites are railing against Moses and Aaron. If we only had died in the land of Egypt, they said. What, you're going to have us die in this wilderness? Why is God taking us away to fall by the sword? Vayamru ish el achiv nitna rosh. And everyone started saying to each other in the camp, give us a new leader. Give us a nitna rosh v'nashuva mitzrayma, and we'll go back to Egypt with a new head of this tribe. And do you know what Moses responds? Nothing. He and Aaron fall on their faces. Do you know who speaks up? You know who's upset that the people want a new leader? Joshua. Once again. No, the land, this is good. We're all good, everybody. Joshua can't handle the dissent, the difference, the desire for new leadership. I'm going to quote Bill Walton for the second time today, for obvious reasons. He's the most famous deadhead to ever live. He said, success at the highest level comes down to one question. Can you decide that your happiness can come from somebody else's success? Success at the highest level comes down to one question. Can you decide that your happiness can come from somebody else's success? Dr. Esther Boyd wrote a beautiful piece about humility. She said, being humble is about seeing that others have the same intrinsic value and importance as yourself. Everybody is worthy. A kind of cognitive form of empathy, which means you share resources and don't end up dominating or exploiting others. Humility is seeing somebody else, imagining all that they are capable of, and knowing that should they reach even some of it, it makes all of us better. Humility is directly tied to dignity and equality. It's okay to have faith in ourselves. It's okay to take pride and joy in our accomplishments. It's not just okay, it's good. Humility only requires, Dr. Boyd writes, that we also take joy in the accomplishments of others, that we have faith in others and insist on treating them with respect too. We have a lot at stake right now. The world, we have a lot at stake right now. The emergence and continuation of leadership that is celebrated for its arrogance rather than its humility is a threat, a legitimate threat to all of us. In all of the places we deeply love, here and abroad, and we will have choices to make, and our family will have choices to make. God chose humility. God chose Moshe, not because he was perfect and not because he didn't get angry, but because underneath all of his insecurity, what he desperately wanted was for everybody to thrive with the same gifts that God had given him. And that's something we can emulate in our actions and certainly our critical choices. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shkach.
Nobody's here because they were all expecting me to speak for 10 more minutes. If nothing else, I'm honest about myself.
I said we didn't even have time to pee.